panic can do this to you. It can affect your body. I just wasn't myself. I was having these racing, anxious thoughts all the time. And this was a really hard thing for me to internalize and come to terms with.
So Juliet, we've seen what you do with eating art. So now we're gonna get to like have a little bit of fun and see what you do with making your own art while we talk a little bit about panic attacks. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have you ever done anything like this before?
I have not put candy on a shoe before, but
Neither
you know
have I.
what? First time's a charm.
Okay, I think we'll get through this together. I was wondering if maybe we could start a little bit by talking about like, you know, just like the basics.
Yeah.
Like how have panic attacks shown up for you? What has it felt like for you?
Right. So I didn't start getting panic attacks until I was in my freshman year of college. Yeah.
How inconvenient.
Right. You're going through all of this change. I was living in a dorm, I'm meeting new people, I'm adjusting to a completely new school, and all of a sudden, it was really one day where I had my first panic attack. And I remember it really clearly. I was on vacation, and all of a sudden, I felt like my muscles kind of tightened, and my throat got really tight, and I thought, I'm having an allergy attack.
Wow.
And that's what I thought it was. I thought it was an allergic reaction. So the tightness didn't go away for days.
For days?
For days, and
Wow.
I was really confused. And I was like, what is going on? This is so bizarre. Like, am I just a little bit stressed about school or an essay or something?
What else was going on? You said that you felt like you couldn't breathe. What else was happening?
Yeah, so my throat felt tight. All of my muscles just kind of felt really stiff. And I was having these racing, anxious thoughts all the time. I just wasn't myself. I felt like a completely different person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just,
Sounds terrifying.
oh yeah, it was really scary.
Yeah. When did it all kind of come into focus that it was like more than just a allergic reaction?
Yeah, so I told my parents, I brought them to my hotel room, and I'm like, guys, I have something to tell you. I'm not really sure what's going on, but something is. I said, look, I'm experiencing all these symptoms. I'm not feeling myself. Is this like an allergic reaction? Do you think there's like hazelnut in drinks and I keep consuming it? They said, Juliet, you're an anxious person. You are clearly going through like a mode of panic. It's okay. I'm like, panic can do this to you? It can affect your body? What are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
So they had
So
to walk me
that's
through
essentially
that
what
a
it
little
is,
bit.
right?
Yeah.
Like, so a panic attack, you mentioned that you're an anxious person.
I
so
am, yeah.
maybe we can talk a little bit about like, how is just like your everyday anxiety experience different from having like a full-blown panic attack? Because it sounds like it was something different to you.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I've always been kind of an overthinker and a type A person. I'm always trying to like make things in control and be orderly and these sorts of things. And this presents more as like, oh my God, I gotta get my homework done 3 weeks in advance.
Sure.
Or these sorts of thoughts, which have some logic behind it.
Yeah.
But when I was experiencing this basically week-long panic, it was a lot of illogical thoughts coming to me, and it was throughout my entire body, and I just couldn't seem to come down from that high point of tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing to highlight is just, you know, anxiety, like you talked about, can show up with like the running thoughts, the anxious thoughts. It's like hard to turn them off. But panic attacks, we think of when someone's having that anxiety and it's all showing up in a very physical way like you just described.
Yep.
And it's very much like in your body. And so some of the common things that people experience are some of the things that you mentioned, like feeling like your throat is closing up. Sometimes that will come with like a huge sense of dread, like I am dying, something terrible is happening.
Absolutely.
And then a lot of other feelings all throughout the body, like upset stomach, feeling shaky, heart racing, things like that. And so it sounds like it was pretty intense.
Yeah, it was so strange because I really thought, I'm dying.
Yeah.
There is like an external cause causing this intrinsic action, right? It doesn't make sense otherwise. It's not logical to me.
Yeah.
So it was really hard for me to accept and understand that this was just anxiety. And I'd end up going to urgent care most days of the week, to be honest, because I was experiencing every day kind of new symptoms. One day, my ribs would kind of spasm, like the muscles near there. Other days, it would be my throat. My eyes would blink a lot without me being in control. It was just all of these sort of spasmic things that I was not in control of, and I didn't understand where they were coming from.
Yeah.
And some of these doctors, they didn't recognize either that it was panic.
So what were they telling you was going on?
They said, okay, we got to do x-rays, we have to check out what's going on inside. So I believe them, of course. But I ended up getting in touch with a therapist. And she said to me, it was someone I had spoken to in high school as well, Juliet, I know that this seems to present like a sort of physical ailment, and it is, but it is stemming from your anxiety. There's no cause beyond that. You don't have brain cancer or heart disease or all these other things you're searching on the internet
like
in the middle of the night. Exactly. I was just confounded by that.
What was that like hearing that? That like, I'm having all of these very physical experiences. My throat is closing up, my muscles are tightening, but you mean to tell me that it's anxiety or related to my anxiety? What was it like hearing that?
It was very hard for me to accept. You know, even after hearing it from a professional and from my family. It was coming to terms with the fact that I was not well, and I was also not fully in control, right? Of even my own body. And anxiety for me stems from being out of control of other things in my life. So then recognizing that I wasn't even in control of myself, that was really scary for me.
And like at such a pivotal point in your life, like you were talking about, like this big transition to college, and you know, that can be really, really tough. So I'm wondering from there, like what did next steps look like for you? So you had these feelings, your family's like, maybe this is like anxiety. We think this is anxiety. You go through the process of getting the physical symptoms worked up, and the therapist is telling you this is related to anxiety. So what happened after that?
Well, at this point, honestly, the panic attacks were happening every single day, multiple times a day. So I was just having trouble functioning or getting through a day. My parents had to step in a lot. You know, my mom came to visit me at school and take care of me, tuck me into bed every night. That was really helpful. But we made an appointment with a psychiatrist, and the first one ended up being not so helpful, but the second one that I saw recommended that I take medication. And this was a really hard thing for me to internalize and come to terms with, because I never thought that I would be the type of person who took medication. Which sounds terrible, but when you're in that position, you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? I can't believe it. You know, I strive to be perfect in all these areas of my life, and now I have to take a medication to regulate how I'm feeling and processing life, you know? It felt like a deficit in some way on my behalf.
Kind of highlights in your mind that like, I'm not perfect. I'm trying really hard to be perfect. And you mean to tell me that like I can't control everything? That can be really tough to sit with.
But when I did start taking the medication, it really helped, and honestly, it changed my life. And I suppose a part of me was in denial for a lot of years, because I had needed it for more than just this freshman year in college. I had always had these sort of feelings, and they just came to a head during this period of time. But they had always been brewing up in me. And in a way, I was grateful that I learned to deal with it now at such a young age. Because I've been learning a lot about myself.
So in that journey of learning more about yourself, are there some things like strategies or ways that you ground yourself when you are feeling really anxious or overwhelmed, or even at the point of having a panic attack?
I think the number one most important thing for me in those situations is to talk to someone. So if I'm with like a friend or family, the best thing for me to do is to say, I'm feeling panicky. And just saying that releases so much tension for me. It's like the keeping it in that just amplifies it.
We talk some about how anxiety can really, really thrive when you're not talking about it. And when you're actively trying to avoid it, it can actually make it a lot harder and a lot worse. So I'm glad that you feel like you can say that to the people in your life. What are things that they can say to you in those moments that help? Is it just them being there that's helpful and having a space for you to say the thing out loud? Or is there something that they do or say in that moment that can help kind of make it even better?
You know, my mom always reminds me, she says, Juliet, take a deep breath. You're okay. And those are simple words, but hearing them, it really does alleviate my perspective in that moment. You know, I'm able to see a little bit more clearly and not feel so inward in my thinking, and just be like, I'm gonna take a moment. And that's okay.
I don't know if that's been what your experience has been like exactly, but for like a lot of people, who are experiencing a panic attack, it's like they're getting hijacked. Like their brain is getting hijacked, their body is getting hijacked. And sometimes you need someone outside of yourself to say, like, even something that may seem really simple, like take a breath, like remind you that like there is a breath there for you at any moment that you choose to find it. And sometimes you need that like outside of yourself because your brain is just doing its own thing.
Another thing I'll do if I don't have a friend with me is, funnily enough, I'll watch YouTube videos.
Okay. What are your go-tos
oh my
in
gosh.
that moment?
Anything to make me laugh, really.
Yeah.
So like I'll watch clips of my favorite TV series or some videos from creators I like. Really just anything to get my mind off of my internal thoughts. Yeah.
I think that's really important too. Like people have to like develop their toolkit,
Yeah.
as you say, right? Like there may be some things that work really well for you in one moment, but you can't like have your mom come with you everywhere until you take a breath, right?
Of course not.
So it's really good that you're also like developing your own strategies that help you in the moment when certain other strategies may not be available. And is it usually like the panic attacks, are they usually triggered? Like you kind of have figured out over time, like these certain situations are the things that bring it on, or does it come out of the blue?
You know what? Funnily enough, there's like a few situations in which I will often have a panic attack, like a long 3-hour dinner where we're just sitting and I just have too much time to think. That's kind of one of those situations.
Yeah.
It happens then maybe because I'm surrounded by people sometimes that don't know what I'm suffering from, right? So I feel like I have to really hide it, and thus it amplifies my anxiety.
Yeah.
It definitely sucked, but I've learned to cope with it just through a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
Forcing myself to do things that make me really uncomfortable sometimes.
So let's talk about that for a second.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because I think that is one of the bigger challenges with trying to actually treat panic attacks. It's really important for treating panic attacks to actually do a lot of exposure therapy and maybe not like flood yourself all at once with like the biggest scenario that kind of triggers the panic attacks, but having to like, you know, interrupt that cycle of avoidance. So I'm wondering like what got you to the point, because you mentioned like having to do the things that are still hard, like what helped you to kind of face that?
Well, right after I had ended my freshman year, I was now on the medication and I had signed up to go study abroad in London at UCL.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was meeting all these new people and I couldn't tell them, oh, by the way, I can't do dinner, I'll have a panic attack at the table.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, Juliet, you are going to push through a few times because I want to get to know new people. I love socializing, I'm a very outgoing person, and I wasn't about to let, you know, my prior experiences stop me. And it helped that I was in a new country, in a new place. So that was kind of like a reset for me.
So maybe we could just kind of circle back to, you know, you've talked a lot about what it feels like to experience a panic attack and also what it's been like to live with anxiety. And we've touched a little bit on some of the strategies that you use, but I was wondering if we could just talk a little bit more about, let's say, someone reached out to you about, you know, I'm experiencing this right now, like what would be helpful? What advice would you give to them?
The first thing that I really needed to hear was knowing that you're not alone. When these symptoms first came up in my life, I felt like I was the sole person in the universe who had ever felt them or experienced them. And that was probably the scariest part, was thinking, well, how am I gonna be better? Because I doubt anyone has ever gone through this before.
Wow, yeah.
But that's kind of the human condition, is we always think that we're the first people to go through a certain feeling, right?
100%.
Heartbreak, sadness, anxiety, whatever it is. And after looking online and watching a few videos and reading a few columns, I realized there are plenty of people out here who are writing about this. That means there are plenty of people who are experiencing it, like me, you know, in their bedrooms, not talking about it online as well. So I would tell someone that they're not alone, that plenty of other people have gone through this.
Absolutely.
You know, and it is so possible to see the light on the other side and really get through the hard times, even when it feels like it's going to be there forever.
Absolutely. I think that's such a powerful, powerful message, because you said now you've been 6 months without a panic attack.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at some point that felt like it wasn't even a possibility. So I think that's a really important thing too, is to just remember that this condition is treatable. And there is help out there. There are treatments that help people improve. And I'm really excited for you for where you're at in your journey with this.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
So, I don't know, what do you think? I think we did pretty
I
good.
love yours.
For our first time designing shoes.
You should be like a professional shoe
Okay,
designer.
girl.
When you're done with the whole psychiatry thing, this
You
is
know,
your
maybe this
calling.
will be my side hustle. If anyone wants to hit
Right.
me up for custom sneaks, you know, I've got them now.
So I'm not very good at drawing while chatting. So unfortunately, I've created these monster shoes over here. But you know what? If I am ever doing like a Halloween party, I'm gonna have the coolest trick-or-treat shoes ever.
There you go.
So cool.
I like
I'm
the
really
vision
happy.
there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.